This is a multivariate assignment on Venezuelan democracy for Paul 242. Through the Latino Barometer, we will look at the perceptions of democracy under the Chavez regime in Venezuela circa 2007. This project will discern public opinion on democracy in order to gain an understanding of how democracy was viewed under the reign of Hugo Chavez. With the death of Hugo Chavez on March 5, 2013, Venezuela's future is up in the air. A tight electoral race between Nicolas Maduro and Enrique Capriles will decide who takes over the helm on the April 14th election. This project will analyze perceptions of democracy under the Chavez government in order to gain a better understanding of where the public stands on the upcoming election. A research question is: what is the perception of democracy in Venezuela? With the upcoming Venezuelan election on April 14th, public attitudes towards democracy may make or break the vote. We seek to understand how the Venezuelan public perceives democracy and what factors affect these perceptions. We selected 5 indicators that project elements of democracy in Venezuela under the Chavez regime. The first indicator discerns public confidence in democracy. The second measures public opinion on whether democracy is suitable for Venezuela, while the third includes opinion on whether democracy is the best form of government for Venezuela. Our final 2 indicators reflect trust. One of them identifies the levels of the trust the public has in freedom to political participation, and the other ascertains public trust in the government. We believe all these indicators represent elements constituting public confidence in democracy. We produce a successful alpha score of 0.6474. Venezuela, degenerative democracy, the revolution in Venezuela, and post-stabilization politics in Latin America provided the intellectual framework upon which we've built our understanding for the rest of this presentation. When measuring our independent variables against our dependent index, we come up with a variety of hypotheses. Some of them include, in terms of age, that younger generations may be more democratically minded due to the effects of globalization on their lives. Older citizens may be more socially conservative and prefer strong autocratic leadership. And in terms of financial stability, those who are financially stable will probably possess a more positive outlook on democracy. The very richest will disproportionately reject Chavez. For the political spectrum, we believe that those on the right are more likely to support democracy, while those on the left are more likely to support socialism. In terms of public impression of Chavez, we believe that those with a positive impression of Chavez will be more inclined to view democracy well. And finally, with the public opinion on Venezuelan-American relations, we believe that people with positive views towards America will support democracy.
The correlational value, as represented by the R value of our correlational equation, was 0.79 squared from minus 0.889. According to the significance chart for public opinion data, when the R is above 0.6, the data should not be redundant, but in this case it is clear that these two variables are not measuring the same thing. Our index is not the same, they are measuring different variables. Furthermore, the negative value indicates that the relationship is inverse. As age increases, the perception of the value of democracy decreases, an indication that younger generations are more optimistic about the prospects of democracy. Unfortunately, none of the other variables in our initial regression analysis were strongly correlated with the dependent variable. It is for this reason we are doing a hierarchical regression analysis in addition to increase the strength of the relationships between our dependent and independent variables. The initial regression was performed to evaluate the impact of variables without using hierarchical regression. After performing a hierarchical regression, it is apparent that again age is closely tied to the dependent variable. As expected, based on the correlational analysis and the other beta values, which represent a change in the dependent variable based on a 1-unit change in the dependent variables, are low. By conducting a hierarchical regression, however, these values should increase. Furthermore, the adjusted R-square value of roughly 0.165 tells us that the combined variables represent a 16.5% variation in dependent variable, which for the purpose of this class is minimally significant. Lastly, the data is not likely being misinterpreted because of a problem of multicollinearity, because all tolerance scores are well above the 0.2 point threshold, and the results are not due to sampling error because the significant F value is below 0.5. Our first hierarchical regression will control for individuals who express positive sentiments towards American and Venezuelan-U.S. relations. Through using suppression, we suppress the people who don't view the U.S. favorably so we can look exclusively at those who favor the U.S. We hypothesize that those who favor the U.S. are more likely to embrace democracy, and therefore we might see a change in the power in the government of Venezuela. For our second hierarchical regression, we will be controlling data for Caracas, the regional power center of the state and the capital. We hypothesize that as a center of power, it should be less optimistic of democracy, as the region has benefited from a centralized power dynamic. This arrow diagram represents the suppression method in hierarchical regression on U.S. opinion and the specification method in hierarchical regression for Caracas residents. After performing the analysis, it is apparent that when suppressing those respondents who have an unfavorable view of the United States, the impact of age is eliminated. The beta value of the financial stability variable increased to a minimally significant value of roughly 0.11. Furthermore, it is a positive relationship, meaning that as a respondent's income increases, they will have a more favorable view of democracy. Also, the F-score is below the threshold value of 0.5 that indicates potential sampling error, so there is no sampling error in this analysis. Lastly, the adjusted R-square value is insignificant, meaning that the independent variables do not collectively account for much variation. After performing a hierarchical analysis while specifying for the regional center of Caracas, the study observed little significance reported in the results obtained. The beta values are below the significance threshold necessary. Although not statistically significant, it is significant for the study in that it is apparent that Caracas, the regional center of power and home to most elites in the state, is relatively ambiguous in reference to its perception of democracy. Due to the large variety of different social groups, classes, and nationalities, it is virtually impossible to predict a person's perception of democracy. Furthermore, we can be assured that these results are not due to chance because of an F value that is less than 0.5 and is not subjective to multicollinearity because of the extremely high tolerance scores. Lastly, the adjusted R-square value of 0.1405, which is roughly 2%, allows the study to draw the conclusion that in fact when controlling for the Caracas region, the independent variables are less likely to explain variation of the dependent variable.
In conclusion, one of our hypotheses was correct while the other one was not. The test where we prove our hunch that those who view America favorably within Venezuelan-American relations were more likely to embrace democracy was a success. Our second test, where we attempted to understand democratic values being prevalent at a regional level in Caracas, was unsuccessful. This may be due to the benefits that the region has gained from resisting direct democratic values. So based on our results, when one looks at the upcoming election in Venezuela, the popularity of Capriles of middle-class men should not be underestimated. This is strongly reflected in the youth's dominant beliefs in democracy. While Nicolas Maduro inherits a strong party which has recently won an election, he will have some big shoes to fill following Chavez's death. The outcome will be interesting to follow.